Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are doing great. So today we have with us Laxmi Moorthy, who is the founder at Purple Iris Consulting. So welcome to you, Lakshmi. Great to see you.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you so much. Lovely to catch up.
So Lakshmi has been an old friend, but at the same time, she is a seasoned consultant and she comes with a rich blend of experience in the consulting world. So I would love to for Lakshmi to tell us about who she really is as a person, and then we can take it forward from there. So, Lakshmi, all yours.
Thank you, Ram. That's an interesting that you asked, who she is as a person. And sometimes that's something that's kind of layered and masked over the different things that we do in life. Yeah. So who am I as a person? Yes. I am a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, and there's a whole lot of family that I'm involved with. I'm a nature enthusiast, I'm a herbalist. Recently, I wouldn't say recently, over a decade, I've been working on in the field of energy and healing. And that's something that not many people know about. I also love to cook, apart from many other things that I do. I'm an avid animal lover. That's who I truly am behind the layers of the professional outfit that I wear. Like you've already introduced me, I founded Purple Iris Consulting almost a decade ago, 2012 to be precise. And since then, we've been doing quite amount of work with organizations and individuals, focusing on performance and potential. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. So, Lakshmi, it's great to know that you have your hands full in many different things. I think right from energy and healing to animal love and being a mother and loving to cook, I think that's a lot for a lot of people to think about in the same lifetime. But that's a wonderful combination. So we're going to talk about essentially your experience in the world of consulting, because you have been a very successful consultant. You run your own company since a long time. So I would like to ask this question on behalf of many people. What is consulting? Because a lot of people do not seem to understand the term really well. So what is your definition or your interpretation of this term consulting?
Well, on a lighter note, this is one of the most misinterpreted or abused word in the corporate world. But this is something really beautiful when you really know what consulting is and who is a consultant and how they can make a difference to whatever they do, whether it's for individuals or for organizations. And I've been privileged to have met and worked with some brilliant consultants myself over the last couple of decades, to really learn from them and understand what consulting is. Because this is not something which is readily taught in college. Of course, there are a lot of courses right now about how to become a facilitator, how to become a consultant. So even if you were doing right things as a consultant, nobody came and told you that hey, what, this is what exactly a consultant does. And sometimes that validation makes a lot of difference. So to consult very simply means to provide an expert advice, and going beyond that, depending on what the need is. So it clearly says that one needs to have a very strong technical expertise in the domain that they are offering their consulting, whether it's technical consulting or financial consulting or organization development consulting like we do. It also involves a set of other things like having a great set of interpersonal skills to observe, listen, understand what the client really wants. And then you have a set of consulting skills, which in itself is a set of competencies. So consulting is providing an advice based on understanding and observing what the client needs more than what the client wants or what the client is asking. And then utilizing your technical expertise, interpersonal skills, and your consulting skills, creating solutions for your clients.
So would you essentially say that a consultant is someone who is a problem solver by nature? Would that be the right way to look at it?
One of the aspects, so I have my colleague, when you talk about consulting, they say, who is a consultant? He is somebody who tells the client what they already know, but they would not like to listen to it. Yeah. Yes, problem solving becomes much more obvious, but there are many layers to it beyond problem solving as well. Sometimes just being a counsel, a listener to the client itself becomes a platform for solutions. So I truly believe that our clients who run their own businesses, they know their business in and out. They've been running their businesses for quite some time. So let's talk about family-run businesses where we have also done work together. They know their business; it runs in their DNA. Sometimes all they need to be given is a space, hold that conversation for them to help them think aloud. They have their solutions. It's just being there and kind of creating that environment where they're able to clear their thoughts and come up with their own solutions. So there are different shades to it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, essentially, you operate as a business consultant, right? And you've been in the industry for a few decades now. You've seen businesses from close quarters. You've worked with several clients. How do you see your role in terms of consulting your clients? What is the value proposition that you bring to the table?
So like I said, each client, each situation is different. But primarily, there are a few things as a standard practice, which I've been doing as a consultant. One is helping them discover or uncover the problem statement. So you would also experience it when clients come to us, they say, we need to run a training program because we don't find people working cohesively. Is that a problem statement? Maybe, but is that the only problem statement? Maybe not. Yeah. Our role as consultants is to uncover, dig a little deeper and find out, go through different layers to really find out what is the real problem. So when you kind of unravel in the process of discovery, we really come to know what the problem is. While not working in cohesion happens to be, a behavior, there's a lot happening at the background which needs to be addressed. So helping the client, discover or uncover what the real problem is, and even articulating the problem statement, which is very clearly understood by all the stakeholders in the organization, very critical. I think that's a starting point, which I also call it as contracting and discovery. Most of the consulting assignments fail much later if this contracting and discovery is not done properly. Because then at the end of it, if this is not done well, the client had an expectation, you delivered something, and they say, no, this is not what we expected, but we spend time, but we spend money, it gets into a different other conversation. So 80%, if you know the Pareto rule, 80% of the success of a consulting is how do you contract, how do you discover, and how do you lay the project outline or the scope of work very clearly along with the outcomes. That's something that's very critical, and that's something that I take it very seriously. And until we get that right, we really don't proceed.
Yeah.
And it's also happened in reality that the contracting hasn't happened well because the expectations are never going to meet, irrespective of what we do.
True.
So this is also, we also know this becomes a breaking point or a continuation point, both for the consultant and for the client, to know how the entire thing is going to go in the future. So like I said, contracting, discovering, laying out the outcomes and agreeing to how the outcomes are going to look like is the role that is very critical that one needs to play. Bringing out the progress of the project as a review. So since we work with different kind of clients, you have family-run businesses. They might not have a review even as their internal process, okay? So they will not even ask for it. But whereas when you work with MNCs, they clearly know that if you sign a project for 6 months, give us a fortnightly update, give us a review. If not a meeting, it could just be a presentation or a deck, right? So people may not ask, but knowing authentically what will help to the project to move and kind of bringing that out to people, to bring that out to the client is very important. So creating those review mechanisms. So while creating a review mechanism might look like a structure or a process, I'm talking about something behind it, the authenticity of the consultant to share what his role in its entirety is, even if the client doesn't know. Yeah. So yeah, ensuring that the progress updates are being given. And also bringing in every visible and invisible stakeholder in the project. Now, what I mean by that is, typically when you're talking to a client, you either speak to a business head or an HR head, right? Yeah. And then they kind of use it and all. Now, they represent a whole lot of people who are actually influencing a lot of decisions, who are also going to either contribute, accelerate your project, or become roadblocks in your project. And this is something that's usually not discussed. So even bringing those invisible stakeholders to the front and kind of getting them involved in the project is something that I ensure that I do. See, once the consulting project starts, of course, there are a lot of processes and procedures we have built for anyone to kind of pick those consulting skills up and start delivering. But something which overlaps this entire process is what I'm talking about, where I kind of pitch in these different stages. And the last one is when you're delivering the project, it is really putting down all your defenses and asking, hey, did it work for you? It doesn't matter what we did. It doesn't matter, there was a project, scope creep and all of that. In spite of all of that, did it really work for you? What could we have done better? And then truly drop all your defenses and just listen to them. That would kind of get some very authentic feedbacks about how we have done, about some good work or some slack, whatever it is. And I think that becomes a great learning point for me and the team to kind of see what we can do better, or how we can excavate the situation into something better, which might in turn itself lead to more work with the client. And I've seen this happening. Surprisingly, paradoxically, in the lowest point of the project, when we have truly authentically heard the client, they have come back and given us more work. Whereas we also had clients who have given fantastic feedback, but they never came back to us for any repeat work.
Now, it's kind of interesting that you talk about how the entire project has gone. Is the client happy with your work? And if you've done real good work, you may continue. But let me take you back right at the beginning of any relationship. When you are talking to an organization, having a conversation with them, identifying pain points. So does it typically happen that the client chooses to work with you because they believe you can solve their problem? Or do you have to do your own bit of convincing that, yes, we know your problems well and we can deliver the goods for you? So how does that really happen?
Now, that's a great question, Ram. And since we also work together, that each client is different and they have different parameters, when they look at, some of them look for a strong reference.
Yes.
So there is a business friend of mine, and Laxmi has done work for them. They really like the work and they have referred, and so you came through reference, so let's start. That is one way. Now that doesn't mean that I kind of reduce or come out of any of the processes that I spoke about in the earlier. Yeah. So whatever we will do, we will still continue to do because we are entering into a professional agreement. Others would look out for, have you done similar work in a similar industry? For example, let me give you an example. Restructuring the organization. If that's one of the things that we do, they would say, have you specifically done for a technology industry? Have you specifically done for a pharma industry? So having the technical expertise is one, and having able to produce the proof of concepts of work done before actually adds into a lot of authenticity. They say, okay, you've done this before, so There is a learning curve that has happened. This is like, it's not a trial and error. Yeah. And if we were to do this in 6 months' time, hiring you, probably we'll be able to do in 3 months' time, which is very essential for us. So having the relevant technical expertise in the relevant domain becomes one critical factor for deciding any consultant for that matter. The other thing is, there is something called as, I'm kind of loosely using the analogy of an arranged marriage here. Yeah. And you know why I'm saying that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can correlate with that.
Yeah. So is it like, are we culturally fit? Is the consultant able to understand the culture of the organization? The way people speak, the way decisions are made, because all of this is so invisible. Nobody is going to give that in writing. But the client, and I would like to believe the client gets a sense whether the consultant gets you. Yeah. So the chemistry between the consultant and the client, very important. And I think that runs right from the time you say hello and shake your hands. And it's not only you, but also the team that's going to be working with you. जैसे बोलते हैं ना कि लड़का अच्छा लगा, लड़की अच्छा लगा, but what about the families? Who are the ones who are supporting them? They would also like to see the team. Do they also carry the same kind of mindset? They look at all of that. Though it doesn't necessarily fall into a checklist. I haven't seen a client coming with a checklist to see, but it's a very strong sense that they do in their mind, have that calculation. So here we go. You have the technical expertise, you have the relevant domain being work done in the relevant domain, the chemistry of the consulting, the interpersonal skills, the chemistry of the client and the consultant. Does the consultant really get you beyond the words that you speak? And second, is the consultant different from the technical expert who is already there in your organization? See, the thing is, there is already an expert in the organization. And there was always an opportunity for the client to have done it in-house. For some reason, that has not happened. So what is the consultant going to do differently and deliver differently is something that they would definitely look for.
Well,
so
if you look at it closely, a lot of times when you start working on any consulting assignments, and I've seen this consulting as well as in the training fraternity, is that many times when you start working closely in order to help them solve an XYZ problem, people start having this feeling that who the hell are you to tell us what to do here, right? We have been working in this organization for maybe 5 years, 10 years. We know our stuff well. So have you faced such kind of resistance? And if yes, what you do? What is your approach in that case?
Every time. If it doesn't, then there's something wrong with the project.
Right. So it's a given, right? It's a given. You need to have this resistance. It's a good omen.
Yes. Yes. So, in fact, I was just reading up in one of the consulting articles. They say the moment you face resistance in a consulting project, that means you're hitting the right chords. You're hitting the chords that are important.
I just wanted to double check that I'm on the right track. But what you said just reassures me. So good.
So if the client agrees to everything that you say, then it's a real problem. Yeah. We need to have somebody. So resistance, what is resistance? Right? The resistance is something that comes, there is a lack of faith. Okay, there is a lack of faith or there is a lack of trust about anything about what the consulting firm or the consultant does, for which there are a lot of questions raised. Okay, so resistance can come in the form of, why are you recommending this all the time? Like you said, why are you recommending this? So resistance does come, and it's very important to deal with resistance and give its due importance. We cannot shove it away. We'll have to deal with it upfront. And there are ways and methods to deal with it. Just to give one example, if everything that you're recommending, you're suggesting as a process, how do we do the consulting project is being resisted with, or it's being questioned. It may not come from everybody, okay? But there is always one person who will do that job. And Interestingly, with one of our clients that, we started working with later on, we happened to become, best of friends. We kind of did successfully, run a project there. They said they actually appointed somebody to resist us. His job was to resist.
Right.
All right. In the management parlance, we call it as 6 thinking hats. The black hat is the one who would raise. They didn't know that philosophy, but they were already running something like that.
True.
Okay. So whether it is planted or even otherwise, it gives us an opportunity for us to really think what we are recommending. That is number one. That's how I would like to take it. Sometimes have we missed understanding a client in some way where because of which this resistance is coming from? Second, it's kind of throwing that question back to the person as to, I see that you have a lot of questions about my methodology. Is there something that, that didn't really fit, your frame of thinking? Do you have any suggestion? So there are different types of resistance. It could be the resistance to the person, or the process, or the way we work, anything at all. So putting that as a question back to the person who is resisting and really trying to understand where is this coming from. Recently, we concluded a major project with a huge multinational company in US. One of the senior most professionals did come up with resistance in every meeting. And that kind of really derailed a whole lot of our, work that we're supposed to do. I went back and, spoke to the respective stakeholders as to why this is happening. One of the reasons that came out was he wanted to introduce, another consulting firm for this project, which didn't take off. Yeah, it was nothing to do with our methodology. It was nothing to do with, it was just a deflected anger of the management that they didn't choose the consulting partner of his preference.
Yeah.
Of course, then I had to have a dialogue with him and kind of, said things. And later on, he happened to provide his team to us and to provide us with most valuable inputs about the organization for us to do the project successfully. So this is pretty much a reality. And the moment you face resistance to all the consultants out there, just pat your back and say, you hit something very important. Go for it.
True. Now, the fact that you face these kind of resistance, I mean, it's a common phenomenon in the consulting world is what I understand from you. But many a times it goes beyond resistance, where you have to actually tell the top management or maybe the people involved in the project the bad news. You have to tell them the bitter truth as it is, as ugly and as naked it could be. How do you go about that? Because many a times people are not ready for the truth. I mean, people will never be ready for the truth, but how do you go about revealing what they really need to change or do about things?
I think that's one of the most critical role of a consultant and which differentiates him from an employee, him or her from an employee. Many times we pose as consultants, go into an organization and we end up as an external employee, if I may say. Yeah. Now, what is truth? And there is no one single truth, right? So in the process of consulting, when you gather data, when you gather information, when you do focus group discussions, when you kind of present all of this, you need to, as a consultant, substantiate what you're saying with a lot of logic, information, and data from the organization and also from the studies that you've done externally, like benchmarking or external survey. How are the other organizations doing? So yes, while saying the truth may sound challenging, but if it comes with solutions, if it comes with how other organizations have dealt it, how can we help them to cross over? What will happen if they continue walking the same path? So bringing those different scenarios. So you continue what you're doing. What is going to happen in the next 2 years? Are you going to be happy with, the status quo? If not, then what would you like to do? So not really. The consultant becomes a trusted advisor or an influencer to make the right decisions to the stakeholder or the client. So I always go not only with the truth or the reality, if I may say, not the truth, the reality of the situation and its consequences. And putting across different ways, different scenarios for the play out different scenarios. Don't do anything, sit back. What will happen? Do this, what will happen? Because clients would always like to choose. Give them one way, they will narrow it down to say either they would narrow it down to the pricing or commercials or timeline, but give them options. So when you give them options, then there are the probability of them choosing the right path or choosing the path that's going to help the organization comes out better.
Essentially, are we saying that we need to use data to bring in objectivity in what we're suggesting? Is that what you're hinting at?
Mainly, yes.
Okay.
Mainly, yes. Because everyone else has opinions.
Yes.
At the same time, personalize this. When you go to a hospital, you have the patient number. So all the data is there, but it's a patient number.
True.
That's not the conversation we want. Yeah, so we have to personalize the data. One, the data adds to the objectivity of what the reality is. Because you've got stakeholders with different mindsets, right? You have somebody who is a logical thinker, somebody who is an analyst, somebody who has a big picture in mind, somebody who looks into details. So to cater to all their perspectives, it's important to have enough information, data gathered through different sources, whether it's focus group discussions or studying their processes. At the same time, not distance ourselves from the data. We'll also have to humanize it. And many times as a consultant, when I've personalized this, when I've brought in my own emotions into it, when I say emotions, it's kind of making it more humanistic rather than just a pile of information or data. That's where the client also gets that how connected you are, how passionate you are about the project. And let me tell you, you can't just fake it, right? You can't fake it. And it's seen. And when you're authentic, that's also it's seen.
You spoke so much about data, and you also initially talked about the importance of listening and maybe also questioning and giving them tough insights from your end. Do you think there are certain ingredients that actually make you into a better consultant? Are there certain prerequisites for you to be a good consultant?
Consulting definitely is a skill, a set of competencies. But more than that, it's also about who you are as a person. In fact, it is said that consulting is like an act of love. What you would do, and what would a mother do to a child, to take care of the child, or what would one human being do for another human being in an act of love? In the highest form, consulting is that. So you might have, so like I said in the beginning of our conversation, we need to have our technical expertise, our domain expertise, our own interpersonal skills that we build in our profession, and a set of, the consulting tools, consulting competencies that are needed, like we just discussed, asking the right questions, listening deeply, listening to the unsaid, listening beyond words, listening between the spaces. What is most important is to be true to yourself. If we know that the path or the approach that the client is recommending may not give him full results, say that, talk about that.
So if someone wants to get into consulting, I know a lot of people would want to get into consulting because they feel they can add value, they can help, they can solve problems. What would you recommend people who would want to get into this act of consulting?
Consulting is definitely a very interesting journey. I may not say that all consulting projects may be successful, but you grow as an individual, you grow as a professional, you grow as an authentic self every time you follow those nomenclatures of consulting. So like I said, being authentic, I think I've repeated that word several times in our conversation today. Being being true to yourself. Am I convinced in what I'm saying? Yeah, it's not about having all the answers. Many times in consulting, when you start a project, it's not that the path is completely visible and you have all the answers, but being intuitive that you're on the right track, you're making the right recommendation. You're not using shortcuts. There could have been a band-aid work done to kind of solve the problem, for which actually it requires a surgery. And the band-aid might also look good for a while, at least till the time you're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So those are your own inner conversations with yourself. And staying true to oneself, in spite of knowing that this is a difficult path, this could be a long path. There could not be so many who might kind of agree on what you're saying, and still being true to that. Building that tenacity is one quality that I've seen in many of the successful consultants, very impactful consultants that I've worked with. And that's something that I try to imbibe very strongly. That is one. Second is, like I said, discovery. Look beyond what is being shown and seen. See people beyond who are talking to you, who are actually, running the machinery of the organization. Understanding the informal networks in the organization and having an access to that is very important for a consultant. Sometimes we just stick our conversations to the HR team or the business team, and not the others who are actually impacting their work. So accessing their informal social network to get the best out of best of information, best of feedback, best of expression, that will help you in the project. And also being vulnerable. Consultants are not encyclopedias. Also, being humble to the fact that we will not have solutions to all the problems.
Yeah, true. Absolutely.
And
so I like that, the bandage analogy that you used, and also the vulnerability fact that, because many times we have this unnecessary pressure that I need to provide solution for every problem. But sometimes you got to accept the fact that maybe you need more time to find a solution. Sometimes you won't find the solution at all. So you need more help at hand.
And the last one, and one interesting thing is, when clients approach, when the stakeholders approach that, hey, we have a problem, like I said, whether it's with cohesiveness or with performance or with potential, many times they don't know that, or they know that they have also contributed to this problem. The problem doesn't arise on its own. They are equally a part in this. And until I don't see that accountability in them, until somewhere in the conversation, they don't bring out saying that you were in this role, right? What could you have done to kind of prevented the problem? If they say, no, there is nothing that I could have done, it all happened, then I think twice or thrice before, proceeding ahead.
True.
Yeah.
Well, one last question, which I would want you to try and answer, and if you can, in one sentence. An organization needs to have a consultant because. I want you to try and complete that sentence based on what you think is correct.
Okay, let me give it a shot. An organization needs a consultant if they need an unbiased, fresh perspective, technical expertise across different domains, and someone who has no vested interest other than the outcomes that they have come to create for. Then they should go for it.
All right. I think that's a very holistic definition that you put around why an organization needs to have a consultant. And I'm sure there are many, many more reasons than one needs to look at. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Laxmi, for shedding light on what consulting is and the world of consulting. It's not one of the easiest topics to hang around with. And because you've been there in the industry for several decades now, doing consulting successfully, I think it's always great to hear from the horse's mouths. So thank you once again for sharing your thoughts, your insights. We look forward to getting you back on the channel with some of your other insights, maybe on different topics. So really appreciate your time today, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you, Ram. It was lovely chatting up, and thank you for having me here.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.